Before the video starts, here's a quick shout out to Revitup, Jyoti, Suhas, 60GP, and You Never Know. For a shout out in the next video, type your comment, like the video, and make sure that you're subscribed with notifications. The comments with the highest number of likes will get a shout out in the next video. In a world where social media convinces us that upgrades are absolutely necessary, I've stuck with my KTM RC390 for close to 5 years now. Why? Well, I'm going to share that along with my ownership review and a few tips and tricks on how to keep your motorcycle running well for a longer period of time in today's video. I'm Ogif, welcome to the channel. Now for the purpose of structuring this video a little better, I'm going to split it into 5 different sections. Issues I've faced with the motorcycle in the last 5 years, mods I've made to it to improve how it performs, changes I've made to make it more comfortable, protective parts I've added just in case, aesthetic changes, and finally my reasons for keeping the motorcycle. Now we'll start off by talking about the issues that I faced with the motorcycle. For those of you who've been with the channel for a while, you know that most of the initial issues that I faced with the motorcycle were heating related. I've made an entire series on how to resolve the overheating issues that you'd face on a KTM RC390 and for that matter pretty much any modern day motorcycle. You can check out that series by clicking on the link in the top of the screen right now. The good news is that I've been able to resolve all of those overheating issues and the motorcycle is running really well right now. I have to knock on wood, I think. Apart from that, the one time that the motorcycle broke down during a ride was when someone else tampered with my motorcycle's spark plug, and I've made another video on that also. You can check that out in case you want to. It'll be in the description of this video too. Some major parts that had to be replaced over the years included a rear monoshock that started to leak oil after 25,000 odd kilometers. The new one, the updated rear monoshock on the RC390 was better covered and better protected from the elements. So I've been running that for close to around 45,000 kilometers now without any issues. Apart from that, there was an engine rebuild at about 50,000 kilometers which costed me around 12,000 or 12,500 rupees or so back then. And apart from that, there haven't been any major issues with the motorcycle since I've had it for the last 5 years. Now I know that there are people who've had issues with KTM's build quality. Fortunately for me, I've not had any major issues with the motorcycle apart from what I've just mentioned. Keep in mind though that I do maintain my motorcycle very frequently, and if there's any minor issues that I spot while maintaining my motorcycle, I try and make sure that I get those rectified as quickly as possible before they snowball into something bigger. Now when we come to improvements I've made to the motorcycle, I'm going to be talking about some of the products that I've used on Rage to keep it running well for the last 5 years and relatively trouble-free. We'll start off by talking about the engine oil. Now if the engine is the heart of the motorcycle, the engine oil is the blood that runs through that. Selecting the right engine oil is critical for your motorcycle if you're looking at making sure that it runs well for a longer period of time. Now I've been talking about the engine oil that I use on my motorcycle over the last few videos, but before getting into that I want to address a few misconceptions about that oil. Firstly, there's confusion around which range would suit your motorcycle better, the Castrol Active range or the Castrol Power 1 range. To break it down, Castrol Active is designed for your daily bikes and scooters like the Honda Activa, Pulsar 150 and so on. And it's designed to give it 3 times the protection during the different stages of riding. Castrol Power 1 on the other hand is made with the aim to give you the best performance from your motorcycle. So if you've got a sports bike or a super bike, you'd use a Castrol Power 1 racing oil to give you the ultimate acceleration. If you've got a cruiser or a tourer, you'd use the Castrol Power 1 cruise oil for that on-demand acceleration that you need when riding on highways. And if you've got a smaller capacity motorcycle, you'd use the Castrol Power 1 oil to get the maximum performance out of it. I initially tried out the Castrol Power 1 Cruise Oil, which is their 15W50 oil grade, which is what KTM recommends for the KTM RC390 here in India. I then tried out the Castrol Power 1 Racing Oil, which is their 10W50 oil. Now I've shared in quite a few videos about how these oils have helped me make sure that the motorcycle runs well, and a lot of minor issues and major issues were taken care of because of them. In addition to that, the motorcycle runs just as well as it did 5 years ago, so I'm very pleased with the decision I've made. The next improvement I made to the motorcycle was in terms of braking. Now you'll hear me say this a lot in my review videos, that you should only be going as fast as your motorcycle can slow down. And your brake pads play a big role in doing that. The stock brakes on the KTM RC390 back in 2015 weren't sintered and didn't offer a lot of bite, though they did offer a decent amount of feedback. What I did to sort this out was I got a set of EBC HH sintered brake pads for the front of the motorcycle, and I kept the rear brake pad stock because I rarely use the rear brake anyway, so I didn't see the need to upgrade that. The new RCs come stock with sintered brake pads, so I don't think there'll be a need to upgrade. But if you're a first gen 390 owner, or I think even a second gen 390 owner, I'm not sure about that, I think it would benefit you if you upgrade to sintered brake pads instead. Next up we have tires. Now there's a lot of motorcyclists who buy really expensive tires with a short lifespan and wouldn't really end up using those tires to their full potential. They end up being used more as show pieces versus actually being put to use. Now while the stock Metzeler M5s and the M7RRs that I later got installed on the motorcycle were brilliant tires, a set of them is pretty expensive. And the traffic and our road conditions in Mumbai don't really invite you to ride your motorcycle like they're supposed to be ridden on those tires. When it comes to striking the right balance between performance, price and lifespan, in my opinion the Apollo Alpha H1 tires check all the right boxes. I've been using the set that I have for the last 10 months or so, and I have no complaints for the kind of riding I do, both in the dry and in the wet conditions too. Next up we have the Powertronic piggyback ECU and a map switch. Now once the warranty on my motorcycle ended, I did a bit of research and finally narrowed down on the Powertronic piggyback ECU. There's two maps available on the motorcycle, and some of you have asked me what that switch on the handlebar is for. It's for switching between maps. So map 2 is the touring map and map 1 is the race map. Now keep in mind that I only use the race map when I'm on an open highway or on an open road. It does make a significant difference to how the power is delivered on the motorcycle, so I wouldn't really recommend using that in the city. The touring map, which is the default map, would be a lot more user-friendly, so to speak, in the city. It's also worth noting that I've made a change to the spark plug. I'm using an NGK Iridium spark plug. Next up we have the coolant and the radiator fan. Now I've made an entire series on overcoming the overheating issues that I was facing on the motorcycle. The best combination I was able to find was using engine ice as the coolant, using the 2018 KTM Duke 390's radiator fan, and the Castrol Power One Racing 10W50 oil. Those three made the biggest difference in keeping the engine within operating temperatures. Next up we'll talk about the headlights. Now while the stock headlights on the RC390 are great, I wanted a bit of an upgrade because I noticed that I ended up riding a lot more at night than I would have liked to. I installed a pair of Oxbeam 6000 Kelvin LEDs, which are slightly on the whiter side, but they offer a significant improvement in the nighttime visibility. Keep in mind that you can also adjust the angle of the headlights on the RC390, so make those adjustments when you install the new headlights, and also make sure that you're not blinding anyone who's coming from the opposite direction. Now I know some of you don't associate comfort with the RC390, but since I use my motorcycle daily to work and back and for a few long rides also, I wanted to make sure that I made a few changes to the bike to make it a little more manageable over time. First up we have traction pads. Now these are from Autolog Design, and I've included them in the comfort section of this review because over time with the stock tank on the RC390, I realized that I was sliding forward every now and then when I was braking. Apart from the obvious pain and discomfort that would have caused, having to make adjustments to where I was sitting on the motorcycle multiple times on a long ride also proved to, be a little bit of a trouble. These traction pads not only help you stay planted if you're gripping the tank right while braking, but it also provides you with a bit of stability while cornering and allows you to hang off a lot easier. Next up we have the grips. Now some of you might remember me using these orange grips on my RC390 in the initial days of the vlogs that were coming out. I then upgraded to spider grips, and one of the main reasons for doing so was to reduce the vibrations that I was feeling at the handlebars. Now how spider grips do this is they have an inner tube which kind of moves along with the vibrations, and it kind of dampens the vibrations you feel on the outer side of that grip, on the outer layer rather, of that grip. And these work really effectively. What I noticed is that the tingling sensation which I would otherwise feel in my wrists when I get off my motorcycle after a really long ride, when I've been on the throttle for a long time, that wasn't experienced with the spider grips. That went away. And along with that, the wet grip also was a lot better. So even if I was riding in really heavy rains, there was no fear of me, slipping off the throttle at any point in time. They really do work very well. Next up is a part that I get asked a lot of questions around, and that's the visor on the RC390. It is an official KTM power part that my brother bought for me from Australia when he was coming home for holidays last Christmas. It does help in reducing the wind blast considerably when you're riding on the highway. I must also mention that you have to clear out the frosting which is on the visor, which sits just above the headlights on the RC390. This would otherwise affect the throw of the light when you're riding at night, and it would impact visibility to some extent. Next up we have the seat cover. Now while the stock pillion seat on the RC390 looks great, it is pretty slippery. To prevent my pillion and my luggage from slipping forward, I had the seat taken to a local seat shop and had the same material that's used on the rider's seat on the RC390 put on the pillion seat, and that seemed to have sorted out the issue. Next up we'll talk about protecting the motorcycle. Now while I've personally not dropped my bike, others have managed to do that when they were sitting on it while it was parked and playing around with the switches. Welcome to India. In the process, I've had to replace a lot of indicators and rear view mirrors too. To prevent such damage from taking place in the future, I've had a few bits and bobs installed on the motorcycle to keep it safe even if it were to fall down. I've installed frame sliders, fork sliders and swing arm sliders. In addition to these, I've also replaced the stock radiator guard with an aluminium one. I've also added swing arm spools to make it easier to lift the motorcycle with a paddock stand. Next up, let's talk about aesthetics. Now while I think that the stock RC390 looked really great, I wanted to make a few changes to my motorcycle to personalize it and also make it look a little sharper, at least in my opinion. Apart from the race visor, I also added the race belly from Autolog Design, but to be fair, that did help increase the cornering and ground clearance a bit. Because the exhaust was then exposed, I installed the exhaust shield from the first gen Duke 390 to add a bit of refinement to how it looks. I wasn't a huge fan of the stock fender on the RC390, and so I had a tail tidy kit installed from Motor Fusion to give it a sharper look at the rear. Finally, I got the brake fluid reservoir covers installed again from Autolog Design. Now finally, my reasons for keeping the motorcycle for close to 5 years. And this might sound a little philosophical, but there's a point that I want to make. You see, social media gives you that impression that whatever you see about a person online is all they're up to 24/7. Be it pictures or images, since that's all that we get to see about that person's life, that's what we are conditioned to think that they're doing throughout the day. For those of you who've been with the channel for a while now and who follow me on my other social media handles also, you'd know that I'm just a regular person who likes motorcycles and puts out content related to motorcycles only. So while most of the pictures and videos that I post online would be from rides that I've been on, I'm not always riding. I have a regular life, and buying a bigger motorcycle when I really wouldn't be using it like it's meant to be used wouldn't be a smart decision. Most of my riding is in the city, and the 390 is more than enough for my daily commute to work and the occasional weekend ride too. Upgrading at this point would be like buying the latest smartphone and then using it to make phone calls. The old phone could make phone calls too. The second thing that I take into consideration when upgrading my motorcycles is whether I've outgrown my motorcycle in terms of my own riding abilities. Is there something that this motorcycle can't do that I want it to do with my riding abilities? Or if I'm just generally bored with the motorcycle now. And I honestly can't say that I've reached a stage where either of those are true. The only reason I could see myself upgrading my motorcycle in the near future is for comfort, both for the rider and the pillion. RC390 isn't exactly known for its comfort. For a bit of refinement, I've been with a single cylinder motorcycle for quite a while now. A twin or a triple or a inline 4 would be great. And if I knew that the number of rides that I'll be doing would definitely increase, so that would then mean that the new motorcycle would be put to good use. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope that this video was useful not just to you RC390 owners, but to other motorcyclists also who are looking at keeping their motorcycles for a long time or probably considering upgrading and on the fence about that decision. If you've still got questions around what we've discussed in this video today, please by all means leave them in the comment section. I respond to all sensible comments as quickly as I can. As always guys, at least wear your helmets while riding your motorcycles and ride safe. It's a freaking jungle out there. Goodbye. How that works is they have an inner tube which kind of absorbs most of those vibrations. I don't know what I'm doing here, but absorbs the vibrations. Next up we'll talk about protection. No, that doesn't sound right. Now this might sound a little philosophical.
Chanel boss with a great bag. Came up, you can't hate that. Self-made, you can't take that. Yeah, self-made, you can't make that. Some said I need a record deal, I need a co-sign, I need a Dre track. But all the time I had a mean flow, I had a cold grind, and that's a great match.